customer where you're just looking at stuff and moving on. Like if you stopped and like looked at something a little bit more in depth, like that's totally acceptable, and it's just curiosity. It's good to be curious. And they would let us like look at people's makeup. That was one thing I would do all the time if I saw a good one. I'd be like, hold up, let me look at your face. And then I'd look at it and be like, oh, that's awesome, and then just move on. But I think Erebus was the only one to actually make me jump. No, there was one other, but I'll get to that in a minute. But seeing all of the behind-the-scenes work that we were allowed to see was cool as well, because you see these effects that look like they're super expensive and top of the line. I bought this fresh this season. They totally made it themselves, super cheap. And super easily too, and it was super effective. So I got to learn some low budget, how to make different props, and still have it look like it's top-notch stuff, and not have to worry about getting those top brands and keeping up in the industry that way. I was able to create things on my own, and especially save the decks some money with the budget they provided.
Were there any other haunted ships you went to, or was it just houses?
Actually, the Irvin is the only retired ore ship that's like a haunt in the entire world. The only other, I think, haunted ship is the Queen Mary, which is a battleship. It's pretty rare to find haunted ships, actually, where especially the Irvin was one of a kind, the only one in the world. So it's pretty cool. Everyone that they would ask about our haunt, what it was and like what our venue was. As soon as they hear it, they're like, "Oh, that's so cool." They'd be pretty jealous of the venue just because on its own that boat can be creepy. You just turn off the lights, it's creepy. It's dark. It's like you hear these sounds of the metal clanging as it's expanding, contracting with the weather. And for me, I was so used to those sounds. Like it was more comforting to hear them than to have silence. If it was silent in that boat, it was weird. And that's when you start to be like, all right, what's gonna happen? What's coming?
But then, was it last year or this year that you had to say goodbye?
I officially left April of this year, but last season they had to do the work on the slip, so they didn't have the haunted ship for that last year. So it's kind of, it is what it is. Like I was disappointed at first, but it was kind of nice to have an October free, since I hadn't had a free October in like 11 years at that point. So I never really got to go out and explore during the haunt season. Or go and do just spooky things, and it was cool to experience that. But I still miss being in the haunt, because that's definitely my home, and that's what I hope to create here in Denver.
So this is my new location.
Haunted attraction. Yep. Yes. There's some competition here. There's 13th floor, which is good, but that's about it for competition. That's gonna be kind of where I want this haunt to be. I went through a haunt in Littleton last October, and it was disappointing, actually. And it was in a really, really awesome costume shop. So I had some good high hopes for this thing, and there was like one or two actors in it. The one actor was following us through it, and after a while I was like, all right, this isn't going to be scary at all. So my sister-in-law that was with me, she was just like, oh, we should have just gone to 13th floor, because we were going to go there instead. And so as we're going through, at one point, I think that actor just figured out, like, oh, he's not scared of this. And then he learned real quickly when I was like, oh, that prop is called this. Oh, that prop is this. I had one of those. And he's like, oh, you do this? I'm like, yep, managed my own for a while there. And he's like, oh, okay. So they had like a vortex tunnel, which is like a bridge that has a spinning tube around it, which it almost makes you feel intoxicated. You just fall to one side. And I just looked at my sister-in-law. I'm like, hey, Callie, watch this. And I just held out my arms and went straight across it, no problem. And she's like, yep, you've done that before. Yeah. Yep, we had one.
So did you go to Did you go to the 13th floor?
No, I did not.
No.
I want to go this season.
Okay.
They just started their season, I think, last weekend or something like that. And I saw a couple ads on Groupon, so I may have to hit that up. It's kind of cool being in a big city, coming from Duluth, Minnesota, have all these cool things, Groupon and DoorDash, all these new bits of technology I can utilize. So.
Might as well.
Yes, absolutely.
What makes a good haunt, in your opinion?
What makes a good haunt?
Key components.
a lot of people want to say expensive props and super intense jump scares. No, it's about the heart that goes into it. It's about putting your feeling into it. Some of the most intense scares that I've come up with, we all have that internalized bit of depression at some point, or that really internalized anger towards something, or you get a little dark bubble brewing inside that stomach of yours. And the best way to let it out is to put it into your haunt, because that's when you're going to have the most genuine emotion behind it. Just kind of letting yourself let it go. Those that utilize that, and you can usually tell with the amount of detail that goes into it and kind of the extravagance of it, where it's not dependent on just on the props. You can see it in the paintwork. They took their time. They put their life into it, and those are the best haunts. And the actors that you can tell genuinely they enjoy their job. There's some haunts I've been through, and you can just tell, like, okay, they're there because they're paid to be there. A lot of the haunts that have volunteer actors actually have some of the strongest acting teams, because they're there because they just want to be. They want to be there to scare people. Even at my current job here, I've run into a couple donors at my center that I work at, that they're like, yeah, I used to do all this haunt work, and once at Six Flags and this and that. And it's funny because we were able to just pick each other out of a crowd. Like, we just kind of were talking once, and he's like, have you ever worked in a haunt? I'm like, you have too. and that's how our conversation got started. And it's weird how we're just kind of drawn to each other, but those that have the heart for it usually find each other in those situations. But putting all of your heart into it is what makes it a good haunt, not just fancy schmancy technology. You need to have soul in it. It has to have personality. It can't just be like, oh, jump scare, because it gets you to jump, but it's not scary. It's a startle. You want people to be scared. You want to play on their fears, immerse them into it. There's a haunt that I don't like spiders, honestly, of all things. I do not like spiders. I'm fine with snakes. Snakes are cool. That and the sound of people scraping their teeth on silverware gives me goosebumps just thinking about it. Yuck. But there's a room that in one of these haunts, it's called the Haunted Hoochie. It was an intense haunt. But there were spiders that were very realistic, coming out of walls in a cave, up all around you, on the side of you, and being that immersed into it was like, I walked briskly through that area and I just kept my head down and I went, because I already knew. I was like, nope, and just went right through that room, and I looked at the detail and admired it for what it was, and then I made my peace and said goodbye.
That was that. Do you think we all have an artist inside of us?
Oh, absolutely. Everyone just has their way of letting it out, and others don't even realize that they have it in them. There's some actors, especially, I've seen that have come in and they're like, I don't know, I'm super nervous about this, and they're super shy, or they're unsure of what to do, or like how to be scary. And then I'll sit with them in the room and I'll be like, all right, look around this room. Like, what do you see that you can utilize? And they would start pointing out different aspects of the room. They're like, okay, well, there's like this prop here. Okay, there's this building that's coming out of the wall here. I could hide behind here, get a jump scare and all that. And I would open up their minds a little bit. And I'd be like, just try to think outside of the box a little bit. Like, normal day-to-day life, we're so in our own head. Like, just open that skull up a little bit and just let the colors go. And they would usually be like, well, I don't know, like, I don't want to like scream in their face. I'm like, don't, just make noises. Like, what kind of noises? Like, I don't care what kind of noise you make. Like, just get out of that shell a little bit. And they'd kind of do that. They'd feel a little stupid with themselves for a minute, but we all do, because you're like, okay, is this right? And once the first groups would come through, and I would tell them, I'm like, you're anxious and you're nervous, use that. And then they would just use that, get the adrenaline going, and then they would just bounce off the walls, scare the crap out of these people, and then they're hooked. So I feel like everybody has an outlet in them, whether it's acting in a haunted attraction or playing the piano, cello, or painting. There's so many different outlets you can use, but everybody has something in them.
Any advice for future makeup artists or haunted house attraction runners?
If you ever get the opportunity to be a part of a haunted attraction, absolutely do it. That's where I learned who some of my closest friends were. You learn who's there for you. It's its own. You create your own family in these haunted attractions. Even at these haunted conventions that I've gone to, and I'm talking with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of haunters, they're also supportive of each other. There's a lot of people that are huge competitors, huge haunters that are from huge haunts around the country, and they're competitors, but they're still sitting there laughing and chatting, going, oh yeah, this is how I did this. This is how I did this. The hunt industry is so different than any other business. It's good to be curious about your competitors, and in situations like the company I work for now in the plasma industry, they don't encourage that kind of curiosity, which is a shame, because that's one thing you need to know how your competitors operate, and not necessarily in a way to undermine them, but oh, this is what they do and this works for them. Maybe we can utilize something like that, and realize yeah, we're all here to do the same thing, but we're all in different parts of the world here. We can get along and be friends and help each other out and help us all be successful in our industry, because the haunt industry now is a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's huge, and it's great to get into it. You make great friends, you learn awesome things, and it's the knowledge that you accumulate over the years. It never stops. You get lots of different people that you've worked on that get a hold of you every single season. Hey, can I come back to you? Or there's some hunters that I'm in touch with not down now anymore. Now they're up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and they manage a hunt called the Morgue, and I'm still in touch with them. We still talk about everything that we experienced. I met them at the Hunters Convention. There's another couple I met that they're in New York right now, and we met at the convention, and we're still in touch once in a while, friends on Facebook, and so you make all these connections, and it's awesome to have that support around the country that you didn't realize that you had.
And how can people connect with you online? Do you have sites?
I have my Facebook page, Makeup by Alex Dunning. I also have an Instagram. It's Makeup by Alex Dunning as well. Other than that, right now, I currently don't have more platforms. People that generally would get a hold of me on Facebook, or email, which is makeupbyalexdunning@gmail.com. I keep it pretty consistent with the names there. So it's pretty easy to find me. So whenever people need to get a hold of me, they usually just find me online, or if they know somebody who knows me, they'll get my contact information. So Facebook, definitely number one. That's where I get all my requests from.
So go check them out. Need some makeup done in the Colorado area.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, Colorado's really big. You're in which area?
I'm in Lakewood, Colorado, which is the western suburb of Denver.
All right. So if you're in that area, check him out. He does good work.
Absolutely.
And finally, why does art matter?
Art matters because it is such a way to express oneself. There's methods that people use, writing or painting. Every way that you let yourself out, it's a way to healthily express your emotions. If you're extremely happy, sad, no matter what you're feeling, it is such a healthy way to express who you are inside. And in the long run, that makes you live a more fulfilling life. You feel sometimes more exposed and vulnerable from the art that you are presenting, but there's a reason why you're presenting it, and it's something that you still want people to see, and that way people can understand you better, and get to know you without necessarily having to sit down and be like, hey, let's go get coffee and get to know each other. There's artists that you can look at their paintings or ceramic work and just understand what was going on in their head at that time, and you're like, all right, that person was super excited about that, or they were in a very dark place. But it's such an important way to express yourself. for me, especially music, that is how I let out my emotions. I bottle up my emotions. I'm such an introvert that and an empath, so I pick up everyone else's emotions and just push them down and push them down until it's gonna explode, and then